HOA, Karen tried to ban my deaf son's treatment. Then she pulled out something impossible. I wasn't expecting anything unusual that day. Adam and I were in the waiting room at the children's clinic, just like every other Tuesday. The same soft hum of fluorescent lights above, the faint sounds of kids playing, and the quiet whispers of parents. Adam sat beside me, his tiny fingers tracing the edges of his toy truck. Silence had become second nature to us. He was deaf, his world was often quiet. But in this space, it didn't feel like a barrier. It was just us, together, in our peaceful routine. Then she walked in. Mrs. Lacey, the HOA Karen. Her heels clicked on the tiled floor, sharp and deliberate, like she had something to prove. Her eyes immediately locked onto me, the kind of look that cuts through you. "You're wasting time, you know," she spat, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "My daughter's therapy is delayed because of your son's treatment. It's a waste of resources. You should be ashamed." I held my ground, my expression calm, while inside, my blood was boiling. But it wasn't her words that got to me. It was what she pulled from her bag, the document, the one that could end everything. I wasn't going to lose this fight, not when I knew what I had in my pocket. The impossible was about to happen, and it was going to be on my terms. I've always prided myself on my ability to maintain calm. Whether at work or at home, I approach life with a quiet precision. I'm not one for chaos or noise. Instead, I prefer routine, structure, and balance. The kind of person who carefully plans every step, every movement before making a decision. My job as a senior project manager at a tech firm requires this kind of mindset, sifting through complex data, negotiating high-stakes deals, and managing teams. It's not a job for the faint of heart, but I've always excelled in this field because I stay composed, thinking several moves ahead of everyone else. People call me cool-headed and methodical, and I never mind that. It's who I am. But my real peace, my true anchor, isn't in spreadsheets or boardrooms. It's in the quiet moments I share with my son, Adam. Adam was born deaf. When he was first diagnosed, I remember the weight of the word deaf settling over me. I wasn't sure how to process it, how to imagine a future for him. But over the years, I've watched him grow stronger, more capable. He's my world. I don't need him to speak. His laughter, his smile, the way his eyes light up when he hears music through his cochlear implant. That's enough for me. We've built a routine. Every Tuesday, I take him to the clinic for speech therapy. I watch him in those moments, so focused, determined to overcome the challenges ahead. The therapy isn't just about treatment. It's about giving him the tools to engage with a world that, at times, feels like it's leaving him behind. It was a peaceful life we led, Adam and I. One that balanced my quiet profession with his silent world. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. And nothing was going to disrupt that peace. Not even Karen. The first time I saw her was at the HOA meeting a month before things escalated. Mrs. Lacey, Karen, as the neighbors called her, had always been a problem, the kind of person who felt entitled to dictate how everyone around her should live. Her complaints about everything from lawn care to the color of my front door were legendary. But this time it was different. I had just finished a phone call with a potential client when I heard her voice, sharp and loud, cutting through the murmur of the meeting. She was talking about my son, Adam, and his therapy sessions at the clinic. "I don't think it's fair that the community is footing the bill for someone's special needs," she said, her tone dripping with disdain. "We all have children, we all have needs. But why should my taxes pay for this?" The room fell silent. I wasn't surprised by her attitude. It was Karen, after all. But hearing her voice, loud and cutting, with no sense of empathy or understanding, hit me harder than I expected. My chest tightened, and I felt my hands clenching into fists at my sides. Still, I didn't react. I had learned long ago that reacting to Karen only gave her more ammunition. Instead, I stayed calm, looking around the room for the support of my neighbors. To my surprise, there was none. Most of them sat there, avoiding eye contact, pretending like they hadn't heard her words. It wasn't until the meeting adjourned and I was walking out that she caught me in the hallway. She approached me with a slow, deliberate step, her heels clicking against the floor, echoing like a warning. You know, she began, her voice low but venomous. Your son doesn't belong in that clinic. It's a waste of resources. And if you don't stop taking advantage of the system, I'll make sure the board knows. I turned to face her, my gaze steady but cold. I had dealt with Karen before, but this was different. This wasn't just a petty complaint about neighborhood rules. She was threatening Adam's future, something I couldn't and wouldn't allow. Go ahead, I said, my voice calm but firm. But know this, if you try to take away my son's treatment, I'll make sure everyone knows just who you really are. She sneered at me, her eyes narrowing, but she didn't say another word. I watched her walk away, her steps full of purpose, and I knew this wasn't over. Karen had just made it personal, and now, so had I. That was the moment I realized how far she was willing to go. That was the moment the quiet routine of my life, the delicate balance I had worked so hard to build, was about to be shattered. In the days that followed, I didn't let Karen's threats shake me, not outwardly. I knew better than to react in the heat of the moment. That's not how I operate. I'm not the type to get angry, not the type to let emotions drive my decisions. Instead, I focused on the one thing that mattered, Adam. I couldn't afford to let Karen or anyone else disrupt his life, especially not with something as important as his therapy. But I did my homework. I quietly began to investigate. I reviewed the HOA bylaws, making sure I understood every single line. I spoke with the clinic about the process for treatments, the insurance coverage, and any legal implications. I checked the laws regarding medical treatments, children's rights, and the responsibilities of local communities to provide necessary services. I was calculating my next move, but I wasn't going to give away my intentions. Not yet. When I spoke to Adam, there was no anger in my voice. I didn't let him see how the situation was affecting me. He was so young, so innocent, and I wanted to protect him from the ugliness of it all. Instead, I kept things light like we always did. We talked about his progress in therapy, about the toy trucks he loved so much, and about the new books he was excited to learn from. We didn't talk about Karen. I didn't have to let her words affect me, because I knew exactly what I needed to do. Karen thought she could bully me, thought she could use her position in the HOA to take away something vital to my son. But she had underestimated me. I wouldn't fight her with anger, but with precision. Every move I made would be calculated. Every word would be measured. And when the time came, I would make sure she would never, ever threaten my family again. For now, though, I waited, silent, watching and planning. The storm was coming, but I wouldn't make a sound until I was ready to strike. The tension began to build slowly, like the calm before a storm. I could feel in the air every time I saw Karen, in the way she looked at me with a mixture of disdain and triumph. It wasn't just her eyes, no, it was the way she held herself, as if she was waiting for the moment when everything would fall apart. I had to admit, there was a part of me that respected her confidence. She thought she was invincible, untouchable, like she could bend the world to her will with a single glare. But I also knew that if she was going to make a move, it would be soon. I began to notice small things around the neighborhood. Conversations would pause when I entered a room, eyes would flicker to me, and whispers would follow. I couldn't help but feel the shift. People were taking sides, quietly but surely. Some were with me, understanding that a child's future shouldn't be decided by petty grievances. Others, though, were swayed by Karen's influence. She had power, and she wasn't afraid to use it. I heard about it first from Linda, an older woman who lived 2 doors down from me. She'd been the one to tell me that Karen had been making calls to the HOA board, rallying support for a motion to remove Adam's therapy services from the clinic's list of approved treatments. She's been talking about it nonstop, Linda said one afternoon, leaning close as if the walls might be listening. She's telling everyone you're taking advantage of the system, that your son doesn't really need it. The board's going to vote on it next week. I felt a knot form in my stomach. It wasn't just a vague threat anymore. It was real. I knew Karen wasn't bluffing. She had been preparing this for weeks, maybe months, gathering allies, spreading rumors, and manipulating people to get what she wanted. At that moment, I knew I couldn't let this slide. If I allowed her to succeed, it would set a precedent. If she could take Adam's therapy away, what would stop her from targeting others? I couldn't be the one to let her win. but I also knew that I had to be careful. Every move had to be precise, every word measured. I started making calls. First to the clinic, confirming Adam's appointments. Then to my lawyer, asking for advice on the legal side of things. I needed to understand exactly what rights I had and how far I could push back without overstepping. I also started reaching out to a few neighbors, the ones I knew supported us, to make sure the HOA board would hear the truth. But just as I was beginning to gather my forces, Karen made her next move. One afternoon, as Adam and I returned home from a therapy session, I found an envelope taped to my front door. Inside was a formal notice from the HOA. Karen had filed a complaint against me, requesting that the board review my son's treatment and revoke its approval. Her war had begun, and now I had no choice but to fight back. As the days passed, the pressure mounted. I spent hours every evening going over the bylaws, consulting with my lawyer, and even researching precedents in similar cases. I had to make sure that I wasn't just fighting for Adam's therapy, but for the principle that no one, no matter how powerful or influential, should be able to take away a child's right to necessary medical treatment. In the meantime, I stayed calm. Every morning, I dropped Adam off at the clinic, his innocent smile never failing to remind me of why this was worth fighting for. The world didn't know what we were up against, but I did. And I was about to show them just how much I had been keeping hidden. No one knew the full extent of my background. I wasn't just another father trying to protect his child. Before becoming project manager, I had been a lawyer, one of the top corporate attorneys at a firm specializing in real estate law. I'd spent years drafting contracts, navigating legal loopholes, and defending clients against lawsuits. The kind of law where strategy and careful planning were everything. I had left my career as a lawyer behind when I chose to raise Adam full-time. It had been a difficult decision, but I knew that my son needed me more than any case or deal ever could. Still, I hadn't forgotten everything I knew about the law. And now, those skills were going to become my secret weapon. As I sat in my home office one evening, reviewing the documents Karen had submitted to the HOA, something clicked. The language she used was vague, deliberately so. There are no concrete facts, just generalized statements and assumptions about what might be going wrong. I knew exactly what I needed to do. I called my former colleague, Charlie. He was a senior partner at a prestigious law firm and someone I trusted implicitly. After a few minutes of catching up, I told him about Karen's complaint and asked if he could help me review the legalities behind the HOA's approval process for treatments like Adam's. Sounds like Karen's trying to pull some strings, he said on the other end of the line. But you're right, there's a way to fight back. You still got all the leverage you need. If she wants to start a legal battle, let's make sure she realizes how far out of her depth she is. The conversation ended with me feeling more confident than ever. Charlie agreed to help me draft a formal rebuttal and, more importantly, prepare for the upcoming HOA board meeting. I wasn't going to let Karen's attempt to tear down my son's future succeed. If she wanted a fight, she would get one. And this time, it wouldn't be a fight she could win. What Karen didn't know was that she was dealing with more than just a father trying to protect his son. She was about to discover that the quiet, calm man she had tried to intimidate had the power and knowledge to turn the tables in a way she couldn't even imagine. Now it was time to plan the next step carefully, using everything I had in my arsenal. I wouldn't just beat her, I would expose her. I knew that if I was going to confront Karen, I had to be strategic. This was no longer just about protecting Adam's therapy. It was about exposing her hypocrisy, her abuse of power, and the damage she was causing to my family. It had to be methodical. Every move, every word calculated with surgical precision. First, I reviewed the complaint Karen had filed. It was poorly constructed, full of emotional language, but lacking any real evidence or legal substance. It was clear she was relying on her position in the HOA to push her agenda, thinking she could bully her way through. I would make sure she understood that her position wouldn't save her now. I began gathering my allies. The first person I called was Linda, the neighbor who had tipped me off about Karen's movements. She was well connected within the community and had lived here long enough to understand the inner workings of the HOA. I needed her on my side. She agreed to speak at the board meeting as a witness to Karen's behavior and her growing influence. Next, I spoke with Dr. Harris, the director of Adam's clinic. I needed a professional to back up my son's treatment. Dr. Harris was more than willing to provide the necessary documentation and testify that Adam's therapy was not only beneficial but essential. Her support would be key in proving the legitimacy of my son's needs, something Karen could never argue with when it came from a licensed medical professional. Then I focused on the HOA bylaws. I spent hours combing through them, searching for any possible loopholes, anything that would allow me to counter Karen's claim. In the process, I found something critical, a clause that made it clear that any decision regarding treatment for a child with disabilities had to be made with parental consent and input from healthcare professionals. This was my leverage. It didn't matter how many people Karen convinced. This was my trump card. I also began researching Karen's own history with the HOA. She had been on the board for years, using her position to impose her personal beliefs on the community. I found a few cases where her actions had caused friction, but nothing quite as damaging as what she was attempting now. I needed to gather evidence of her past misconduct, little details that would expose her for who she really was. I spoke to a few neighbors who had dealt with her in the past. I knew this would come in handy when the time was right. My lawyer, Charlie, had already started drafting the official response to Karen's complaint. We were going to make sure that the HOA board knew they were walking into a legal minefield if they sided with her. It wasn't just a community matter anymore. It was a legal one. If the board tried to remove Adam's treatment, they would be violating several laws, and I would make sure they knew that. The more I prepared, the clearer it became. Karen wasn't just trying to stop Adam's treatment. She was trying to bend the rules to suit her own narrow-minded agenda. She thought she could take everything from me with a few threats and some paperwork. But she had no idea what she was up against. I was ready. The plan was in motion, and the board meeting was just days away. Every detail had been accounted for. All I had to do now was wait for the moment to strike. And when I did, it would be nothing less than precise, calculated, and utterly inevitable. Karen would finally learn that I wasn't the easy target she thought I was. The night before the HOA board meeting, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. My mind was racing with everything that could go wrong and everything I had worked so hard to ensure would go right. I double-checked the documents, reviewed the bylaws again, and ran through my strategy one more time. Every detail had to be perfect. There would be no room for error. The meeting itself was scheduled for 7 p.m., but I arrived an hour early just to settle in. The small, stuffy room filled up quickly as the board members filed in, followed by a handful of residents. Karen was already there, sitting at the front, looking smug, her arms crossed tightly over her chest as if she owned the room. She didn't see me when I walked in, but I noticed her eyes dart around, scanning the room for any potential allies. She'd already made it clear that she expected this to be a formality, a quick vote, and then she would have what she wanted. But I wasn't about to make it that easy for her. I walked to the front of the room and sat in my designated spot. I made sure to smile and greet a few familiar faces, people who had shown support over the past few days. When the meeting officially began, I remained calm. The chairperson called the order, and Karen immediately started with her usual high-pitched, self-righteous tone. I've submitted a formal request to revoke the approval of Mr. Taylor's son's treatment. His therapy is nothing more than a waste of taxpayer dollars. My daughter has been waiting for months for her treatments, and this is just an abuse of the system. She paused, giving the room a chance to take in her words. A few heads nodded, but I could see it in their eyes, their uncertainty. They weren't sure what to make of her claim. I raised my hand, and when the chairperson called on me, I stood up slowly. I had planned every word, but I knew it was my calm demeanor, my measured words, that would do the real work. I wasn't here to shout or make a scene. I was here to speak the truth. Thank you. I began, my voice steady but loud enough for everyone to hear. I've reviewed the bylaws, and I understand the concerns about resource allocation. But let me clarify something very important. My son's treatment is not a waste. It is a necessity backed by medical professionals and legal guidelines. I could see Karen's eyes narrow, but I wasn't done. I've also spoken to Dr. Harris at the clinic, and she's provided documentation that Adam's treatment is not only appropriate, but essential to his development. This isn't about using resources unfairly. This is about ensuring that children with disabilities receive the treatment they deserve. I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. I knew the board members were listening carefully. I could see Linda, the neighbor who had agreed to speak for us, shift in her seat, waiting for her turn. And I'm sure, I continued, Karen would agree that no one should be discriminated against for needing treatment. That would be against the law, after all. I believe we should all stand by what's right, not what's convenient. I turned toward Karen, who was now visibly irritated. I've also done my homework, Karen, I added calmly. I've gathered evidence that shows this isn't the first time you've used your position to push personal agendas. I've spoken to several neighbors, and it seems your actions have caused tension in the community before. Her face flushed a deep shade of red. She opened her mouth to speak, but I didn't let her. I've also spoken with my lawyer. If the board decides to take this any further, we will be seeking legal action. This is not a matter of personal opinion. It's about my son's rights, and I will fight for him. The room fell silent. The power had shifted. Karen's confident posture crumbled in front of everyone, and I could see the realization on her face. This wasn't going the way she had planned. I wasn't going to just fight for my son's treatment. I was going to expose her, and I had the ammunition to do it. The chairperson cleared his throat, signaling the start of the discussion. But the damage was done. Karen's smirk was gone, replaced with a look of panic that she couldn't hide. The room had already turned in my favor. Now, it was just a matter of watching the wheels of justice turn. The board meeting shifted into high gear after I spoke. The room, once filled with tension and quiet uncertainty, now buzzed with the quiet hum of the board members discussing the matter in hushed tones. Karen, once so self-assured, now sat with her arms tightly folded, her face flushed with frustration. She knew she had lost the room. She knew the fight was no longer about her claims or her position in the HOA. It had become about something much more fundamental, the truth. The chairperson, a man named Mr. Carson, cleared his throat, calling for the meeting to reconvene. I believe it's time to open the floor for discussion, he announced, glancing nervously between Karen and me. Karen didn't speak immediately. I knew she was trying to gather her thoughts, figure out a way to salvage her dwindling influence. But I could tell she was running out of time. This wasn't the simple vote she had imagined. It wasn't going to be just another victory in her long string of community manipulations. Linda stood up next, her voice strong and clear. I've lived in this neighborhood for over 20 years, she began, her eyes scanning the room, ensuring everyone was listening. And I've seen Mrs. Lacey use her position to bully neighbors, to impose her personal beliefs on all of us. But this time it's different. This time, she's not just messing with your lawn care or the color of your mailbox. She's messing with a child's future. The room was dead silent as Linda's words settled in. I could feel the shift in the atmosphere, the weight of her accusation hanging in the air. No one was looking at Karen anymore. They were looking at her, the woman who had tried to hijack a child's right to treatment. You all heard her say it, Linda continued. She wanted Mr. Taylor's son to lose his therapy, not because of anything wrong with the treatment, but because of her personal grievances. That's not just wrong, it's dangerous. We should be asking ourselves, what kind of community do we want to be? The kind that stands behind each other, especially when it comes to children's well-being? I could see a few heads nodding in agreement, others shifting uncomfortably in their seats. The tide had turned, but I wasn't done yet. I also want to clarify one more thing, I said, standing again. My voice was calm, but my words carried the weight of a man who had been pushed to the edge and was now reclaiming control. Karen might try to paint this as a personal vendetta, but this is about much more than my son. It's about ensuring that no one in this community is able to use their position to strip away someone's rights, especially the rights of children. I turned my gaze to Karen, who was now squirming in her seat. The truth is, Karen, I said softly, you thought you could use the HOA to impose your will on others. You thought your position gave you power over people's lives. But you've crossed the line. And now, we're not just talking about an issue at the HOA level. We're talking about a legal issue. If you continue to push this, I will take it to court. and I'll make sure the whole community knows exactly who you are." The room was so quiet, you could hear a pin drop. No one spoke, no one moved. Karen's face had gone pale, her usual air of confidence completely gone. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. She had nothing left to say. Mr. Carson cleared his throat, breaking the silence. "I think it's clear that we need to put this to a vote," he said. "All those in favor of revoking Mr. Taylor's son's treatment, please raise your hand." Not a single hand went up. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. The vote was over before it had even begun. But the real victory wasn't in the boardroom. It was in knowing that Karen's reign of manipulation was over. But the battle wasn't done. As the meeting adjourned, I knew I had one more step to take. Karen hadn't just lost this fight. She had lost the respect of the entire community. And now, it was time to make sure she knew that I wasn't just fighting for my son. I was fighting for every person who had ever been silenced by her tactics. I walked out of the meeting room, my head held high, but my mind already racing with the next move. This wasn't just about winning. It was about setting a precedent. And when the time came, Karen would face the full consequences of her actions. It wasn't just the boardroom that Karen had lost. It was her reputation. The word had spread quickly through the neighborhood. What had happened, what she had tried to do. The once feared HOA president was now the subject of whispers and eye rolls, her reputation crumbling faster than I had ever anticipated. People were angry, but more than that, they were ashamed. Ashamed that they had allowed her to wield such power for so long, that they had sat by while she used her position to try and ruin a child's future. The real poetic justice, however, came a week after the board meeting. It was a Thursday evening when I received an email from the HOA office. I opened it, expecting just another update about neighborhood events. But instead, I found something much more powerful, an official statement. The HOA, under the new leadership, had issued a formal apology to me and my family. The email, written by Mr. Carson himself, stated that they had misunderstood the situation and wrongly allowed personal grievances to interfere with community matters. He went on to say that the board had unanimously voted to expel Karen from her position and strip her of her influence over the HOA. I sat back in my chair, letting the weight of the email sink in. The irony wasn't lost on me. The woman who had tried to remove my son's treatment, who had tried to destroy our lives, had now been removed herself. But it wasn't the expulsion that felt satisfying. It was the sense that justice had been served, not in the way I had originally expected, but in a way that was far more fitting. I wasn't the one who had taken Karen down. It was her own arrogance, her desire to control, that had undone her. She thought she could push people around, manipulate the system, and use her position to make others suffer. But what she didn't realize was that her actions would only lead to her own downfall. It was the universe's way of showing her that no one, no matter how powerful, is untouchable. And for me, the peace I had been craving for weeks finally settled in. Adam's therapy continued uninterrupted, his progress unimpeded. The clinic and the people who truly mattered, his doctors, his therapists, the friends who supported him, were there for us, not just in this fight, but in all the battles we would face in the future. I took Adam to his therapy session the next day, as I did every week. His small, curious eyes looked up at me, as if asking me about the world around him, about everything that had just happened. I smiled, ruffling his hair. He didn't need to know the details of what had transpired. All he needed to know was that his father would always protect him, no matter the cost. As I sat with him in the waiting room, watching him play with his toy truck, I felt something shift inside me. A sense of calm, a sense of justice fulfilled. The storm had passed, and I knew that as long as I stood beside Adam, nothing could ever take away the peace we had fought so hard to protect. The battle with Karen had ended, but the lesson remained. Sometimes, the greatest justice comes not for what you do to the people who wrong you, but from watching them fall into their own trap. And when that happens, when their own actions unravel them, you realize that the world has a way of balancing itself out. It always does. A few weeks had passed since Karen was ousted from the HOA, and life had settled back into its rhythm. The chaos had died down, the tension had lifted, and everything had returned to normal, at least on the surface. But deep down, I knew that what had happened wasn't just about Karen or her attempt to ruin my family's life. It was about something much more profound, about standing firm, about protecting what truly matters, no matter the obstacles in the way. I've always believed that justice is a quiet force. It doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need to be loud. It's there in the small, deliberate actions, in the moments where we choose to do the right thing, even when the world feels like it's pushing against us. It's the calm in the storm, the steady hand that holds fast when everything else seems to fall apart. Looking at Adam now, with his bright eyes and his innocent smile, I realized that what I had fought for was bigger than just a fight against Karen. It was about giving my son the chance to live in a world where people like her didn't get to decide what was right for him. It was about showing him that no matter what happens, we stand up for each other. We protect each other. As I sat in the park that afternoon, watching Adam chase after his friends, I knew one thing for sure. Sometimes it's not the big battles we win that matter. It's the quiet victories, the ones that happen behind the scenes when we stand firm for what's right. And that's the kind of world I want to raise my son in. What would you have done if someone tried to take away your child's future? Would you have stood by quietly, or would you have fought back? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you believe in standing up for what's right, don't forget to subscribe for more stories of justice, revenge, and the quiet power of doing what's right.